Good afternoon and welcome to the Imagine Golf Podcast, brought to you by Imagine Golf, helping you get the game you've always imagined. You can go to imaginegolf.com and check out all of our tools, including our free ebooks, practice plans, lesson plans, and training aids that we endorse. Sign up for our free golf tips that go out once a week, every week, by simply dropping us your email. Hey, let's talk about a subject that comes up all the time. In fact, it sounds like I'm saying that every podcast, but it's true. Here at Imagine Golf, about 45% of our practice is women, and we're really proud of that. And so because of that, the topic of women's clubs comes up almost on a daily basis. Women are constantly asking, hey, do I need women's clubs? Men are constantly asking me, hey, does my wife, significant other, my girlfriend, whatever, does she need women's clubs? And the answer, the same answer I've been given for 45 years, is a resounding yes. Yes, they need, and you need, ladies, you need women's clubs. There are 6 main reasons why a woman needs women's clubs, and we're going to cover that in a minute. But it's really critical that if a woman wants to play the best golf that she can play, that she needs women's golf clubs. Point paragraph. There's no, don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And again, with just a few exceptions, and we'll cover some of those exceptions in a minute. But in general, right? In general, a woman's club is going to be lighter, right? It's going to be shorter. The grips are going to be different. The lofts are going to be different. The flexibility of the shafts are going to be different. And like I just mentioned earlier, the weight. So those are the 6 things that are going to be different. And let's talk about that. And by the way, let's just as a baseline, women's clubs are set up for women that are between the heights of 5'3" and 5, let's call it 5'7", 5'8", depending on the manufacturer. So if you're below that or above that, if you're below 5'3", you need to get what's called petite clubs for, and the definition is obvious, right? They're smaller in every fashion. And if you're taller than 5'8" or 5'9" as a woman, then you're looking at probably custom clubs. I'm not a fan of women hitting senior clubs, men's senior, which would be the next option typically for someone that's fitting clubs and really doesn't know what they're doing. That's typically what you see. You go to Golf Galaxy, your wife is 5'10", and she's going to get fitted for clubs, and she walks out with men's senior clubs, right? We're not a fan of that, and you're going to find out why in a few minutes. But it's better than the alternative of playing just standard men's clubs, but it's not as good as playing ladies' clubs. So let's talk about the length of the clubs first and foremost, right? On women's clubs, the average club and I'm going to be everything, when I say the average club, everything is going to be measured against men's clubs. So the average club is about a minimum of 3/4 of an inch to an inch smaller. So every club in the bag is going to be smaller. Why is that important? Because the longer a club is, the harder it is to hit. Point paragraph, right? The driver at standard length of about 45 inches for a man is the hardest club to hit for traditionally, right? So just by when you say that out loud, right? The smaller the individual, they need a smaller club. Easy, right? Let's talk about the shafts. Shafts on women's clubs are typically made of graphite. Why graphite? Because graphite is light, right? If women are not strong as men, most women, my wife would argue that, but most women are not stronger than men or as strong as men. So a lighter club is a big benefit, right? A lighter club allows them to swing the club faster. Faster swing speed increases distance, and on and on and on, right? So grips. The grips are thinner and smaller on women's clubs. Why is that important? Because women's hands are not normally as large as men's hands. So how you position your hand on the golf club or on the grip is critical. It's critical. The pressure points on the grip is critical. If you have the improper grip, you're going to have potentially the improper pressure points. And if that's the case, you can still hit a golf ball. It's just not going to be as good as it should be, right? So why would you do that if you have an option, right? So the grips are important. The lofts on women's clubs are typically stronger, significantly stronger, or less or bigger, however you want to phrase that, right? But the lofts are stronger. As an example, a men's driver today is typically about 10.5 degrees, right? And by the way, a lot of pros now are playing. Dustin Johnson plays a 10.5 degree driver. Rory McIlroy plays a 10.5 degree driver. Tiger Woods plays a 10 degree driver. So women's, though, you'd be hard pressed, by the way, to find a women's driver to be 10.5 degrees. The average woman's driver is 12 plus degrees. So that alone, that increased loft is going to get the ball in the air. The longer the ball is in the air the longer it's in the air, the further it goes, right? Traditionally. A 7-iron for men is about 28.5 degrees on average. And a 7-iron for women is just over 32 degrees. So again, these are all advantages that you would not be taking advantage of if you're not playing women's clubs, all right? And then just one last thing, flexibility. The flexibility on a shaft for women's clubs is completely different than the flexibility on a men's shaft. And what I mean by that is that every shaft has what's called a kick point. The kick point is where that shaft bends and then snaps the club head back, and that helps propel the golf ball or the club head through the actual golf ball. If you have the incorrect kick point, it will potentially open or close the club face inappropriately. So if a woman is not as strong, typically not as strong as a male, and the kick point is set up for a male, that club and that club head is not going to be appropriate through the golf swing, positioned appropriate through the golf swing. So again, why would you do it? And the last one is the overall weight of the club, and I think we covered that a little bit in the beginning. But the clubs are simply lighter. Lighter clubs are easier to swing, all right? So for those 6 reasons, length, shafts, grips, lofts, flexibility, and weight, those are enough. If I haven't convinced you, then play your men's clubs. But those should be enough to convince you that you need women's clubs, all right? So what are some options? Well, if you're taller than 5'9", 5'10", and you're a female, a woman, then I highly, highly recommend that you get fitted for clubs, all right? If you're shorter than 5'2", or height challenge, I'm not allowed to say shorter anymore, I'm sure. If you're height challenged and let's say you're 5 foot, I highly, highly recommend you get fitted, all right? Every manufacturer out there, with the exception of only one, PXG, every manufacturer makes a woman's club set, okay? PXG doesn't believe in women's club sets because they custom fit everything for every golfer. So in a sense, you're still getting a woman's set, but it's a custom fitted set because they don't believe in branding it women's or men's. So again, every manufacturer that I'm aware of, every larger manufacturer makes a woman's set of clubs, right? You will play better. You will have more fun. And by the way, this is a phenomenon that comes up all the time as well. I see women, they come in, they have a brand new set of clubs, and every club goes the same distance. And I look in the bag, and with a few exceptions, obviously the driver doesn't go the same distance, but by and large, every club. And I look in the bag, and what are they hitting? They're hitting an old set of their husband's clubs, or they're hitting a set that a friend of a friend lent them that's 15 or 20 years old, right? So it's just, can we teach them to play the game? Of course we can. Do we tell them they got to go out and get brand new clubs before we can work with them appropriately? No, never. All right. But at the end of the day, again, if you want to play your best golf, and especially if you're new, right, to the game, you want to have the right tools and right equipment in your hands, and that's women's clubs. Okay. By the way, you do not have to spend a ton of money. There are excellent beginner sets, or there are excellent women's sets out there. The entire set, including everything from putter to driver, including a bag, for under $500. Okay, so cost is not an option, or does not prevent people from getting clubs, if you would, anymore. Right? There are numerous sets. We highly recommend the Strata brand. For women, they make a phenomenal women's set and a women's petite set. Top Flight makes a phenomenal set. So there's plenty of them out there. All right. So don't worry about costs if you're thinking about, hey, I need women's clubs. I don't want to spend a ton of money. That's just not the case. All right. All right. So that's it today. Thank you for listening. Please hit the follow button on whatever directory you're listening to. The podcast is on all the major directories, including Spotify, iTunes, now iPod, Apple iPod, iHeartRadio, and everywhere you can find your podcast. If you're looking to get a lesson with me, Daniel Guest, simply click on Book Now button at Imagine.com and you'll see our schedule. Thank you and have a great day.